Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Meet Praneeth. So today we have Rudra with us, who is gonna share his own success story. And he is currently a product manager at Tubi, where he's building AI and automated products for content. And he's also a featured speaker and author for different societies. So Rudra, very, very welcome. Welcome to the channel. And hopefully people will learn a lot from your success story today and will get inspired to file an O1 case soon. So stage is all yours. Why don't you introduce yourself and we'll go from there.
Yeah, firstly, thank you so much, Praneeth, for having me here. I think it's a wonderful platform you have created where you are trying to bring in different people from the industry who have successfully gone through the O1 or the EB1 process, and just allowing them to share their journey and experiences with everyone else. I do feel that a lot of people will get great value from doing this. So yeah, thank you again for doing this and for having me today here. So yeah, I'm currently a product manager at Tubi. I'm around 5 years of experience. Currently at Tubi, I am focused on building content products driven by AI and automation. Before joining Tubi as a consultant in the life sciences and healthcare industry. And prior to that, I had worked as a R&D engineer in Siemens Healthineers. Academically, I have a master's in engineering management from Cornell University. And then back in India, I did my master's in electrical engineering from IIT Madras. So yeah, that's pretty much what I have done professionally till now. And then, like you mentioned, outside that, I'm also a featured speaker. I do write articles on different topics around product management. And yeah, I'm always curious to explore anything new that comes up on my way. Yep.
That's great. And I will definitely discuss the featured author part because that could be a very important way for other people to see how they can become speaker or author for different types of articles, either it's conference papers or society papers. So that's great. And you mentioned that you're an alumni of IIT Madras, right? So let's start there. Like, how was your journey before coming to US? What inspired you to come to US, and any particular reason that you want to go after?
Correct. Yeah, so I did my bachelor's in electronics engineering, and then at that point, I would say I was very interested and motivated about pursuing research long term. That was that, and also I didn't really have thought about coming abroad at that particular time point because of financial or other reasons, right? So I just thought that I want to do the best that can be done in India. And I think nothing better than IITs or ISCs if you're really curious about exploring research. So that's what I did. I applied for GATE. That's the standard process, and give a bunch of interviews and stuff. And I eventually ended up in IIT Madras for my master's in electrical engineering. And this master's was actually called Masters by Research. So
Okay.
IITs and ISCs, what they have, so they have the very standard 2-year masters, which is like the MTech program, what we call in India.
Mhm.
And they also have this Masters by Research program, which is basically, something like a mini PhD. Of course, PhD is way higher in terms of the bar,
Mhm.
but then the basic criteria of being able to graduate successfully from a Masters by Research program is you need to have fast author papers.
Oh,
You need to have a proper research dissertation on a particular topic. So it's like a full-length research program,
writing a
right?
thesis.
Exactly, writing a thesis. Yeah.
Wow,
And
wow.
that's also the reason why some people, it's a 3-year program, but some people can take even 4.5 years to
Or
graduate.
masters.
Yeah.
So how
So
long it took you to complete your masters?
I did it in 3 years,
Oh,
but
wow.
yeah, there's a lot of things that went in the back end. Probably this is not the right platform to talk about all those things, but then yeah, I did it in 3 years eventually.
Great, great. No, I
So
wanted you to start from Madras because I was in Vellore. So I
mhm,
did my bachelor's from VIT Vellore, Vellore Institute of Technology. I
mhm.
think it's like 100 kilometers from Chennai. So
Correct.
yeah, that's great. Awesome. And what inspired you to come to US then after your master's in IIT Madras?
Yeah, so I kind of think this way that I did research to realize that I don't want to do research long term, right? That's the way I look at it. So I think it was important that I went through that journey. So after graduating from IIT Madras, I joined Siemens Healthineers as an R&D engineer. And Siemens, we all know that it's a big name when it comes to medical devices and the life sciences space. So I was working on building products in the diagnostics industry.
Okay.
I worked there for 2 years, and then so like three things that really happened around then, right? So one thing was that I already knew that research is not something that I want to pursue long term, right? So that was one. Second thing was I also came across few product managers from Siemens. And the way it happened was that, so I was, of course, working as R&D engineer, but I did come across, some product managers who were responsible for managing those products, right? And they were basically based out of the US offices. So the product I was building on, we had like bi-weekly calls with the US office, just to make sure that everything is aligned, right? So that's the fast way how I came to know that, there is even a role called product manager. Before that, I really had no clue. So when I started my own research, I kind of started interacting with other people. I started to look that, how their trajectories have taken them.
Right.
And after I did my research and everything, I think that's when I realized that, this is a space that really makes me curious. And I would certainly love to explore this space more.
Right.
So that was the second point, where I decided that I want to move into product management. And then I think the third point, which is also pretty important, I would say, is that, so when I was, like I said earlier, when I was thinking about getting into IIT Madras, of course, I was very, very young at that stage. And like financial situation was something that used to be more concerning and daunting for me. I really don't know that, how to manage, because like, so one thing was that I knew pretty clearly in my head that if I do plan to come to US, I will come to one of the best universities, right? I mean, that's just a personal thing, not saying that people who don't graduate from these universities have nothing less. It's not like that at all. And I realized that over time, but it was just a personal thing, right? And at the same time, I knew that that also puts the limitation that if you are coming from one of these, the so-called great universities, you have to pay a lot of money, right? So, and I knew that the kind of background that I come from, I'll not have like a lot of financial support, right? So I have to like arrange things out of my own.
Right.
In fact, when I came for my master's in Cornell, it was like 100% loan of $90,000.
For 2 years, right?
No, it was for 1 year. It was 1 year.
Wow.
Yeah. Now around, I think the total cost was around $80,000, and then taking all the housing and everything, I had to take a loan of $90,000.
Wow.
So, but yeah, I think it's important because by the time I was working in Siemens, I've grown in age, I've grown in experience, and I just became more confident, where I knew that okay, the loan definitely seems to be hefty at this stage. But I know that if I work really well and go according to plan, it will get paid off eventually, right? In 2 years, 3 years, whatever that timeline is. So I think I'll say these were the three reasons that motivated me to, take that step of moving from India to here. Yeah.
So Cornell is a great school, right? Everyone is an amazing school to go to. So what was your experience at Cornell versus IIT Madras? Like, was it how different it was in terms of your education, or you felt there is any primary differences that you can describe between the two?
It's actually a 180-degree difference, if I have to be very honest, right? And that does not only depend on, on the two universities being two separate universities, but also it depends on the program, I would say.
Right.
Because the program that I was doing in IIT Madras, that was a research program, right?
Oh, yes. Yes.
In this program that I did in Cornell, this was a management program. So it's hell and heaven difference, right? How things operate, how people interact, there's plenty of differences. So I'd say in that way, both places has their own share of learnings in my journey that I had. So I think a lot of people ask me, right, that, what you learned during your days in IIT, right? Because, of all this hype and everything that we have around IITs and ISCs, right? So I never tell people that I learned a lot of research or anything, because I feel like that is like a process. Most people having some basic aptitude will get that. It's not a big deal. But I
Yeah.
think what I really learned in IIT is resilience, right?
Resilience,
And
yes.
how you come, how you come over like some really, really like hefty challenges
Yep.
which will come in your way, especially if you are in research.
Yep.
And you just have to be patient. You just have to be very calm and figure
True.
things out, right? So I
True.
think that's what I really learned at IIT Madras. And then in Cornell, if I have to say, I learned a lot about professionalism. I learned a lot about, how you present yourself. I know that as a researcher, we
Yeah.
really don't care about how we are presenting. We just have that feeling that, okay, what I'm doing, this
Getting
is
it done.
to know out everyone, and that is all that is required. But it's
Right.
not like that, right? And that was also one point, that kind of motivated me to make this switch, because after one point I kind of realized that, okay, I might have 10, 15 publications in my name,
Mm.
but what is the outcome if none
Right.
of this is converted to actual product that I
True.
can see people using, right? And I
True.
think that's also a reason why I got motivated in moving away, because I just feel that when I looked at these different people and their profiles who have been working as product managers,
Mhm.
I just saw that there is a very clear tangible impact that they are creating by building products, right?
Exactly.
So yeah, I think a lot of that, the basic understanding around product management and how product managers function.
Right.
I think a lot of that I definitely learned at Cornell. Yeah.
It's amazing. And how's your journey has been in US, like after school, right? When you started off to look for jobs and when you went into got into Tubi. So how's that process been, like job search, visas, and all those implications that we have? So how's that been?
Yeah, I'd say it has been really a very exciting journey. If I
Right.
look back, exciting and challenging, I'd say.
Mhm.
So I graduated in 2020. That's like the
Just
COVID
before
batch.
COVID.
Yeah,
Uh,
right. So, and not only COVID. I mean, that was also the election year, right? And I'll not name the company or anything, but then there have been responses coming in my inbox saying that your profile really looks great, but the only reason we don't want to consider is that we don't know what will happen if Trump win backs the election.
oh,
There have been messages like this even, right?
oh, that's interesting.
So, but I think in short, what I'm trying to say is that it was a challenging year again, like how we are having right now.
Yep.
But yeah, so I graduated from Cornell in 2020, and then like I said, my first preference was definitely to get into a product management job.
Mhm.
And I think just interviewing and being in the market for a couple of months, I'd say I started the process of interviewing pretty early, because I knew that there is going to be challenges. It's not
Yep.
going to be very smooth.
Yep.
But yeah, during those couple of months, I understood few things very clearly. So how the US job market works.
Right.
So one thing was that I personally feel that US job market really cares about one thing, which is how much of hands-on experience you have,
True.
right? They don't care about degree. They don't care
Right.
about what brand of university you are coming from. I mean, of course, people will appreciate, or people will say that, okay, you are
Yeah.
coming from this and this university.
Yeah.
But when it comes to making hiring decisions, I think it's all about how much of hands-on
Experience.
experience you have. So that is something I learned, which I was not so clear about before.
Right. Right. Right.
The other thing was that I also realized that I need to have multiple plans in place, right? So even though my first preference was getting into product management,
Mhm.
I just by kind of struggling over those 2-3 months,
Right.
and seeing how other people around me are performing in terms of what their experience is and what kind of roles they are being able to crack into, right?
Exactly.
I did realize, and I was I would say I was happy to accept the reality. I think that was very important.
Yep.
Because I realized very early that based on the 2 year of industry experience, and that too as a R&D engineer, which is far away from the kind of product management roles I'm applying for,
Yep.
it's going to be next to impossible to get this thing done right now, right? And you, of course, you will also know, like, the challenges we have as international students with visa and all the OPT clock starting and everything, right?
Exactly.
So I thought that the smartest decision at that time point would be to just take a role that I'm getting, right? And just set
Get
my
into the market.
exactly get into the market, and then nobody is stopping me. If after 5 months I feel that I have grown that caliber to break into a product management role, I will break into, right? Nobody can stop me.
True.
So that's what my thought process was at back that point. So yeah, I just started working, in HCL, the same company we have in India, right?
Yep.
As a lead engineer, even though the designation was called lead engineer, but my work was mostly around program management and project management.
It has some management overview with your job.
I'd say mostly, I really don't know why they named that title as a lead engineer, because lead engineer means something very different.
Yeah.
Because 90%, exactly, 90% of my work was, basically working with these cross-functional stakeholders, building roadmaps, designing like dashboards for business analytics and things like that.
Right.
So that's what I did for 1 year. But at the back of my mind, I still knew that I want to get into product management.
Right.
So I think I just kept on. I mean, I just knew one thing, that I will keep on trying and failing and trying again till I get this thing, right? So I worked in ACL for 1 year. Then I moved to consulting again in a life sciences company.
Because
so
of the Siemens experience, you could
exactly, because all those were kind of aligning, right?
Yeah.
So I went to consulting. I worked there for 1 year. And I also figured out that, so I did a lot of research on LinkedIn, and I did figure out that, people who come from the so-called core engineering background, right? Like not the CSIT people, like people who are coming from electrical engineering, mechanical engineering, and things like that, right? I did realize that a lot of these people actually go via the consulting part to land up in product management.
Oh, okay. Interesting.
So my point of view was that if I cannot land up in product management right now, let me at least go in that direction that will eventually help me to get into product management sooner, right?
Right.
So that's why I knew. So if I just arrange in terms of priority, I knew that after product management, my next role is going to be consulting. So if I can get into PM right now, let's try to get into consulting.
So consulting full time, right?
Full time. Yeah, it's a consultant position. Yeah, consultant full time.
Right.
So I worked in consulting for 1 year. And like I said, I was still going on trying and getting rejected and trying again. I was really lucky to, in between, get a couple of mentors, who were already established product managers.
Wow.
And I think they were really bold enough and straightforward enough to tell me on my face that, Rudra, this is what you are doing wrong. And you need to improve here, I think, which is very, very important if anyone wants to grow, right?
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, I got in touch with them. I tried to develop myself. Yes.
LinkedIn. So you got them
through LinkedIn. Through LinkedIn. Yeah.
Great.
So yeah, I tried to build my skills further. I tried to develop myself, and then eventually, last year around June, that's when I interviewed with Tubi. In fact, I had interviewed with Tubi 1 year before that as well, but I got rejected after going through all the rounds.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, last year around May or June, that's when I did have a very good, I'd say, a relationship with the senior director who was hiring for the previous role when I got rejected.
Right.
So, I mean, I used to just, just maybe we'll just chit chat offline, just on random things, like how things are going and like that, not really like job focused or anything. And then, I really admire him a lot, because I mean, I'm sure you will know that for most of the jobs, the moment you are rejected, nobody cares to respond back to you, right? It's not there. To ask for feedback, nobody cares.
Nobody cares.
This was the person whom I saw, even after I got rejected after the final round. We actually spoke for 20 or 25 email threads.
That's amazing.
So that just shows that how great and honest this person was.
I think they must have saw something in you that they thought that, well, if they could mentor you, at least give some feedback that would help you grow in your career. So something probably might be there.
But I think it was really great of him, because I have I've always been that kind of a person that if I fail at something, I always try to ask the other person, okay, so can you
Why?
help me understand why I failed, right? So that I can do one step better next time, right?
Got it.
And it's sad, but most people don't respond back.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's
Right.
how I had a relationship with the senior director. And then, one day around May last year, I was just like randomly talking with him. And that's when he said that, Rudra, this role has opened up. If you
Right.
are still interested, you can go ahead and apply.
Right.
And yeah, then the interviews happened, and that's how I ended up in Tubi.
Wow. Nice. So when you have did your degree from Cornell as a engineering management graduate, so does it count as a STEM degree or is it a non-STEM degree?
It's a STEM degree.
So you have 3 years of OPT
3 years
to
of OPT,
work on.
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think probably you never applied for H-1B. You directly applied for O-1, right?
Yes. Yes.
Oh,
Yes.
that's great. So that's probably my next question. So what was your process to apply for? Like, where did you get to know about O-1? That would be the first, because generally the route is H-1 after your OPT, and then you probably stay on H-1 for 6 years, then get your green card and start working on your green card. But O-1 is very specific visa, but very few people try for it, right?
Correct. Correct.
How did you come across O-1 and what was your motivation behind it?
Correct. So I would say like the actual process started when I was on the second year of my OPT, right? When I was basically working for that life sciences consulting firm.
Okay. Okay.
So the way I knew it was, I probably did see a couple of posts on LinkedIn, like you said, not a lot, because I think very, very, very few people even like
Know
knew about that.
Yes.
And the other problem is that, and this is something we can talk about later, but then the other problem is that the typical expectation is that if you are not a researcher or a scientist, this is definitely not something for you, right? And I think that kind of makes that information more limited and more restricted to a particular cohort of people.
Exactly.
But anyways, so I did get to know about O-1 when I was in the second year of my OPT.
Okay.
But then there was a reason why I took that extra 1 year. So there are few factors that were playing in my mind, right? So I was trying to balance between three things. So one was that I knew I have this OPT for total 3 years, right? So I know that this is my boundary. What's my boundary?
Yep.
Within which I definitely want to get one done. Second thing was that I have talked with different people, or even like seen people posting and all, by which I knew in the first year of my OPT itself that H-1B cannot be around if I want to work here long term, right?
Yep.
It's a very frustrating, it's a very complicated route. I mean, it's like saying that if things are working, it's a working, one things can drastically change, right?
It's a lottery. So if you didn't get into lottery, there's no way to avoid that. So it's,
exactly. And I did have that experience, although I was kind of independent of H-1B, I would have still applied for O-1.
Right.
But of course I had my first year chance at H-1B, right? And my company didn't apply at all, right? So they still didn't apply at all. They cited some reasons and all, but they didn't apply. Okay. So I could already see that in front of me happening, that that it's a matter of luck on which I really don't have any control. Second year, my consulting firm, they did apply, but it didn't get picked up. Right? Yeah. So I could already see that the reason why I thought to apply for O-1, that is totally validated, because it is like this.
Yep.
So I was trying to balance that time limit that I had, the 3 years time limit that I get because of OPT and STEM OPT. The other thing that was also going in my mind is that I really wanted to change two things in my career path as well. Okay. So one is from, that was one of the motivation why I came to the US, which was move away from research and get into product management. Yep. So that was one thing that was playing in my mind, that can I get into product management first before I go ahead and apply for my O-1, right? Yeah. And the other thing that was also playing in my mind is that I also wanted to change my domain from healthcare to tech.
Okay. You wanted to be very specific tech. Right.
Exactly. So I was basically playing around with these 2-3 factors in my mind and trying to juggle between them and see that if I feed all these things in my model, then what is the output timeline and what's the optimized output process that I should follow, right?
Yep.
So my like based on that analysis, my calculation was pretty simple that, okay, July of 2023 is when my OPT, STEM OPT ends.
Got it.
For that, for sure, not before that, to be honest. Before March of 2023, I want my results with me, because by March of 2023 is going to be the last H-1B application for me. So if I have to apply for O1 by March of 2023, at least 7-8 months before that, I need to be able to change my job and get into product management. So these were all the things that worked out in my mind. And luckily, I think Tubi happened at the best possible time point, I would say, with exactly 1 year remaining for my last year of STEM OPT. But yeah, I think that's how it worked out.
That's amazing, because it worked out at, I think, May 2022, and you have exactly 8 to 9 months to think about H1 or O1. So that is amazing, Rudra. And now, like, to look at an overview before you filed O1, right, of your professional profile. So you worked at HCL for a year, then you were working as a full-time consultant, and then Tubi happened in May 2022, right? So after you joined Tubi, how you approached the whole process of getting to O1?
Yeah. So after I joined Tubi, of course, for the initial, 4 or 5 months, like what I really focused on was to build the level of trust and build the confidence in my entire team, because I knew that if I have to approach this even through Tubi, then of course people have to believe that, okay, this is a person who is worthy of for whom it's worthy to do this process, right? So I think that's the thing I concentrated on for the initial 4 or 5 months. And luckily, I was able to do that. I'd assume. So then, the first person I talked with was, of course, my manager. My report. He is again like a very fascinating person. I'd say very, very helpful. And I cannot tell you enough, Praneeth, how easy it made things for me.
Oh, wow.
So the moment I told him, he was like, okay, let's get it done. Tell me what we need to do, right? And I knew at that time point that, of course, nobody can guarantee what will happen to the output, but I knew at that point that we will be putting our 100% behind this, right? So that was the starting. One thing that I did before approaching my manager, though, was basically get a consultation with external immigration firm, just to get that realization that what I am thinking is that true, or I'm thinking something drastically far away from the reality, right? So because when I went through all the criteria for O1 and all those things, as much as I might have moved away from research, I cannot deny the fact that there are certain things I did during those 3 years at IIT Madras, which played a role in this O1, right? For example, publications. I was involved in a big competition organized by Google that got recognized. So they published about me in Times of India.
Wow.
So of course, those are things that played a great role for O1, right? Because of all those things, I kind of had some level of confidence that probably it seems that I already have most of the things that will be required for O1. And like I mentioned to you earlier, my initial approach was, can I directly go for EB1? So I did this consultation, talk with this external immigration firm. And they reviewed my profile, and they told me that, EB1 seems to be a little too ambitious. But then O1 is something that can be possible, right? So I think I got the validation from there. And then I approached my manager and I told him that, I've already kind of talked with an external law firm, and then, this is what their feedback is. Because at that point, I also did not know that, if Tubi is at all going to do this process, right? So there are so many big companies who do not do this. So that's how I approached my manager. And then my manager was right away, just got involved. Started talking with the law firm because I already had all my documentation and everything arranged. So those things are very quick. So my law firm just said that, okay, if you have everything arranged, just send us that folder so that we can just quickly take a look and review from our side.
Makes sense.
They did the review and they came back with the same feedback that it's totally possible. So we will forward. There was a couple of things, I think, like judging and another one that I was still working on, and that did kind of happen before we filed.
Great.
But then, yeah, overall, I think they felt that my profile is strong enough for a one application. So the process started from there, which was around, I'd say December of last year. Yeah, that's when the process started off formally.
Right.
And then I had to take a few letters from some of my some of my like managers and directors from my previous company and my current company. That took, even I'd say those people were very, very fast. I mean, the moment I told them, they were like, okay, like, when you need this, right? So I think, yeah, I mean, this entire process, I feel that probably my contribution is 30%. I think remaining 70% contribution is by the company, by the law firm, and wonderful people like, whom I have been able to know over the course of my journey. So the letters were pretty fast. And, I couldn't emphasize more like how well the letters were written, right? I mean, I just saw that letters and I was like simply blown away, right? Even I couldn't have probably projected myself to that level how they did, right? Honestly speaking.
Exactly.
So, yeah, there were not much iterations that we needed for the letters. So all those things are pretty fast. And then eventually after compiling that petition and everything, the lawyers filed towards the end of February.
Oh, in 2
months. Yeah, in 2 months, 2.5 months.
Right.
And of course, we went for premium processing. And then we got the results in the first week of March. So that was the time. Yeah.
So like probably in 10 days, you got to know what was
like that. Yeah, 9 days or 10 days. Yeah.
Amazing. So everything happened in 2.5, or let's say put it in 3 months. And which criteria you went after? Because you are a featured author and speaker as well, right? So, and we touched upon it in the very beginning. So did you use that to your advantage in the O1 petition, and which criteria you went after in general for the petition?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I can actually tell you the exact, so I went for 6 criteria, 6 out of 8 criteria.
Right.
So the 6 criteria were, original contribution, high salary, then working in critical capacity, scholarly publication, praise or media recognition, and then the last one was the judging the work of others. Yeah.
Wow. So let's touch on few of those, because which I think could be very, very important to other people as well. For example, original contributions. So did you talk about your publications from your IIT Madras or other papers that you have written, or what were the things that you talked about in this one?
Yeah, so original contribution basically comprised of 2 things, I'll say. And this is totally based on my personal experience of how my lawyers has framed the petition, right? Yep. So it comprised of 2 things. One thing was definitely the publications that I had. And another thing was, I had been involved in certain projects, having like I'd say not like excessively high, but a good impact at some level, which were not really a part of any publications or anything as such, but they were like organizational projects that I were involved in. And those were also included by my lawyers, while documenting the evidence for original contribution.
So your contributions to products that are being built by a company or other firms.
So yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, that's amazing. And I think the other criteria would be, I think you mentioned about the professional articles, right? So were you going after articles in websites, or were they conference articles, or let's say IEEE papers and stuff? So what were they?
Yeah, so I had 3 fast author IEEE publications. So that's what we provided as evidence for the scholarly articles criteria.
Great. And finally, I think the third one that I wanted, so judging, right? Because I think if you look at the like the language of judging, it says evidence of being a judge either individually or in a panel of others' work, and that directly correlates you as an expert, right? So what did you show in this? Like, did you review the conference papers, society papers, or was it completely different thing that you were talking about?
No, judging was actually completely different, not
Oh, wow.
related to papers or publications. And this is actually something that happened organically, I would say, because at that point, to be very honest, I was not probably even looking to fulfill that criteria,
Right.
because I knew that there are other 5 strong criteria which should be good enough for
Yep.
O1.
Yep.
And I also at that point, now I know a lot more, but at that time point, I really didn't know that, how to explore this area of judging, right?
Yeah.
But what happened was that there's this competition that happened in India, and somehow they got in touch with me. And it was a kind of like an entrepreneurship competition, right? So there are this like really early stage teams trying to build new products and get them out in the market.
Yeah.
So it was a competition like that where they reached out to me and invited me to be like one of the judges.
That's amazing.
That's how it worked out. Yeah.
Wow. Awesome. And you filed in premium processing. Any RFEs, any kind of hiccups in the process?
Nothing.
Amazing. Amazing. So how you like O1 is for 3 years, right? And it can be renewed
finitely every year. Yeah.
Perfect. And what is your plan for filing EB1? Like, is it this year, coming year? What is your plan on that?
Yeah. So I don't know if it sounds too ambitious or aggressive, but I am planning to file it next year.
Wow, that's amazing.
So I'm trying. I know, because my lawyers did mention to me, when I spoke to them last time. So they did mention that there is a difference in bar when it comes to O1 and EB1, meaning that it's not about just fulfilling the criteria, but how strong your evidence is in fulfilling those criteria. That will matter. The standard and quality of that evidence is more important for EB1 compared to how it is for O1, right?
And I think 2 questions that kind of were in my mind. So, because in the original contribution, you showed your publications from IIT Madras, where you were more in the research side of electronics engineering or electrical engineering, right? Now, because your field or your niche is product management, right? And in tech, and that is different from electronics engineering research. So how did that correlate in the petition?
Yeah, I think this is a very good question. And I actually wanted to speak on this as well, because I feel that a lot of people, demotivated thinking of the fact that, okay, I used to do this thing and now I'm doing this. I don't know how to kind of create that connecting thread.
Yes.
So this is what I have felt based on how my petition went. I don't think uscis really judges you on basis of just the title or the designation, right? I think practically speaking, it's kind of expected that as people are growing across the career, there will be a change in designation and direction to some extent.
Right.
I think what really matters is that if you kind of go to the root level, right? If you go to the base level of your work,
right,
the kind of work that you actually did, is there an alignment between that and what you are doing now, right? So let me break this down more with my own example, how I created that connecting thread, right? So like you said, of course, my area was in electrical engineering, and then my publications were, it was like electrical engineering was my department, but then I was working in biomedical engineering. That's how I had ended up in Siemens, right?
Right.
So my research was in the healthcare space.
Okay.
So all my papers were talking about some diagnostics device and things like that.
Great.
But luckily, the kind of work that I did during my research that involved a lot of automation and analytics.
So that is
and what I'm doing even today, or what I used to do as a consultant,
right?
All these roles had at the base level, some level of analytics and automation involved.
Wow.
So that was the connecting thread that we identified. I discussed with a lawyer, and they were also pretty confident, that it will not really matter that you used to be a R&D engineer in healthcare and now you're a product manager for Tubi, which are apparently 2 things poles apart.
Yeah.
But because like at a fundamental level, the hands-on work that you have done, basically the skills
Help
in
you.
which you have expertise, that
Yeah.
is kind of consistent.
Right.
We can still make a solid case. Yeah.
No, I think, yeah, sometimes, let's say if you're coming from a mechanical engineering field and you switch to CS, that is very different to connect together. But I
Yes.
think in your case, because you were working on the biomedical devices and you were also a consultant for a health tech, all that kind of stitched together at the end. So
Yeah.
that is amazing. And I think the second thing that I wanted you to touch upon is you say that you're a featured speaker, author, and I have seen that you have been talking about your IEEE articles and your invited speaker talks. So one question that people ask me, how to become that featured author, how to become that featured speaker, like how to approach these different, let's say, conferences or organizations so that you can invite you to speak. So how to show that you are available to do this and you can do this?
I think that, and in fact, this is a question that just like 1 hour back, someone texted me, Praneeth.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a very senior leader in one of the big companies. And then he just texted me saying that, Rudra, I'm really trying to do this, but I don't know where to start or how to do this.
Exactly.
I think like my simple, my simple mantra has been try, fail, try again till it gets done.
Right.
I really don't think there's any shortcut to this. There might be, I'm not really aware of, but this is what I have done, right? So before I got my first call as a speaker, I can tell you I've got 50 rejections, right? And that is totally fine. I think one issue that I see in a lot of people that I mentored, right, is, and I think this is a general thing happening across our society, is this, lack of patience. So people are like, I want this right now, right? I want this tomorrow. I don't want to go through that struggle. That unfortunately is not the right process, right? Everybody goes through the struggle. So yeah, I mean, I kept applying. I got rejected from so many places. Most of the places, will just tell me that, okay, your profile overall looks good, but we only call people who are like, directors and that level. And of course, I don't see myself becoming a director tomorrow.
True.
So I had no option but to, just keep trying, applying to different places, messaging people on LinkedIn, with the hope that, okay, at some point someone would respond back. And I said that is exactly how it started. And the good thing about this process is that once you get one call, things start to scale up, right?
Exactly.
Because someone sees that, okay, this person has been a speaker or author here, then someone else sends you the invite, and that's how things just multiply. So I think it's really about getting that fast breakthrough.
Exactly.
And there is no shortcut to get that fast breakthrough other than just keep on trying, till you click.
Yeah, I think you're exactly, this is what I tell people in my EB1 consultations, that you will have to fetch the water yourself. No one will do it for you. And I think you should know there should be no shame in reaching out and saying that, well, I'm available to do this.
Exactly.
And that's a great advice, that rejection or failure should not be a break to your aspiration, right? That's amazing. And at the end, I think, thank you so much for taking all the time. And one last set of advice that you would like to give for people who want to try for O1 or ultimately for EB1.
Sure. So I think a couple of things. So one would be that if you, and now that, people like you, and there are like, some other people as well, like who are doing these, calls with people who have obtained a O1 or EB1, just trying to inform other people in advance, which was not the case, let's say 5 years back, right?
True.
I think people should really take advantage of this process. And then I think that if someone is really interested applying for O1 or EB1, they should do that in a proactive way rather than waiting for other visas to get exhausted and only starting to give them, right? I think a big, and I'll tell you why this happens, because most people, I'm not saying all, but most people become very easily complacent when they have something going, right?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know people who have like, had really shown interest in getting one or things like this. And they knew that this is the last chance at H-1B.
Right.
And the moment that H-1B got picked up, they are out from the scene, right?
Yeah.
So I personally don't feel this is the right approach. If you are
Exactly.
really interested in getting over a review, do that proactively, which means that don't wait for other things to not happen to motivate to do this process. Do it anyways, right?
Exactly.
And that's the first suggestion I would have. The second suggestion, I think what I talked about before about patience. A lot of people connect with me and they just say that I want to get this thing done tomorrow. Why is it not happening right now?
Right.
They have to understand it doesn't happen for anybody right now. Everybody gone through a struggle before eventually achieving that goal, right? So they just have to be open enough, and just like embrace that rejection, right? And like you said, I don't think there's no shame or anything in that. That is the real process. That's how real life works. That you will have to go through a set of rejections before you can achieve your goal, right? I think these are the main two
advice
that I have. And I think like the summary is that if you really try something honestly and with like 100% focus and dedication, it will happen today or tomorrow. I think nobody can stop you. You just have to keep trying, and be persistent about it. Yeah.
That's an excellent set of advice. And I think you're very right that people want to get things done very quickly. And I tell them that this is a process. O1 and EB1 will not happen in a day. You'll have to focus your energy. You'll have to focus your plan of action to get to that. It can take up to 3 years. It can take 1 year. It depends on how much you have already achieved in what you're doing. Right. So with that, I want to thank you, Rudra, for taking the time out. I know you're very active on LinkedIn. You're already helping so many people out there on different websites and on LinkedIn. But thank you for taking the time for this platform so that people can reach out to you. And I hope it's okay if people reach out to you on LinkedIn. I'll put your LinkedIn in the description.
So absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I think this was a wonderful experience chatting with you, Praneeth.
Same here.
I'm pretty sure even outside of this, O1 and EB1, we will stay connected and probably chat about a lot of other things.
Yes.
But yeah, I think it was really awesome being here. I hope that my learnings and insights that I got to share today will probably help some people at least.
Definitely.
And yeah, I'm more than happy, if people connects with me on LinkedIn.
Sure.
I'm also a mentor on Kriya. So if people are interested, the link is right there at the top of my LinkedIn profile. They can just book a slot with me.
Perfect.
I'm more than happy to help out more people.
Awesome. And is it a paid consultation or is it a free consultation?
No, it's a 100% free consultation.
Wow, that's amazing. Perfect. So once again, thank you so much, Rudra. And thank you for taking this time.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Praneeth. And yeah, you have a wonderful rest of your day.